I hope the weather is starting to be beautiful wherever you are. I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona right now, and it is like the most perfect weather on the face of the planet. And I cannot wait for all of the work things to be over and for it to be motorcycle riding day. But I'll let these ladies take it away. And this is super exciting. Be prepared to be super excited for tonight and drop your questions in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us tonight. It's a big topic. It's how to write the BDR, and we have a lot of information for you. So stick around, and then at the end we'll do a Q&A. If you have any burning questions, then we can answer those. So my name is Ina Thorn. I am the executive director of the BDR organization, and I'm super excited to share with you tonight about the world of BDR that I have been living and breathing for the last 13 years. So yeah, lots of information to share, and we'll do that in a second.
Hi, I'm Kyrie Eppley. I'm out of Corbett, Oregon, and I'm an ambassador, which I've been doing for the last 4 or so years. And we're excited that you're all here to learn more.
Thanks, Kyrie. So I love this quote from John Lennon: "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." And for a lot of us, BDRs are aspirational experiences, right? Like we might have got into adventure riding because we know somebody who has ridden BDRs and told you about the life-changing experience that they had on the BDR, or that's something that you wanted to do, but maybe you're putting it aside for now because you don't think that you're ready, you're prepared, you're not good enough rider, maybe you don't have a good enough bike. But what we're here to tell you is don't set it aside. If you think that BDR is something that you want to do, we're here to tell you that it's totally possible. It's easier than you think, and it's a reality that you can happen with a little bit of preparation. And so that's what this presentation is about. We're going to cover a lot of information, and hopefully by the end of it, you will know that you can also ride a BDR, and it's not as hard as you think. So tonight we'll cover BDR 101, some basic facts about the organization, the resources that the nonprofit provides, and then what do you need to do to plan for the BDR, what the bike of choice, what training you have to do, how to set up the bike, the necessary gear to ride a BDR successfully, the navigational resources, and then of course, then we'll just encourage you either this season or next season to go ahead and try it for yourself. So real quick, for those of you who are not familiar with what BDR is, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we're funded by the motorcycle community, meaning it's the riders who ride the BDRs and enjoy the experiences and have these experiences of a lifetime, and they want to give back to the organization. So they support us with tax-deductible donations, as well as we are supported by the adventure motorcycle industry. We have over 40 adventure brands right now that are supporting BDR. However, you might think that corporate support is the biggest part of our fundraising pie, but that's not true. So individual riders, 85% of our funding comes from individual riders, and so it's really a community effort. And then, of course, all the work is done by a very small staff and a small board. But the majority of scouting and just carrying out the BDR mission happens through the work of our volunteers. We have over 40 ambassadors around the nation who are helping scout the BDRs or attend the premieres, present at dealership events. And so we really could not do it. It's a group effort, it's a volunteer effort, and really people are behind the BDR because of the passion and wanting to give back to the community. So our big mission is fivefold, but it really boils down to three points. Number one, of course, it's creating these epic off-highway experiences for adventure and dual sport motorcycles. These are, we like to say that they're off-pavement experiences, not off-road. The difference there is that none of the BDRs are on trails. We use only public roads. We also promote rider education, safety, and stewardship in the backcountry. There's a lot of resources on our website on how to camp without leaving a trace, how to be a good steward of the public lands. So that's a really important part of the mission of the organization. And then thirdly, it's to drive sustainable economic stimulus to rural communities. The BDR routes go through some of the most remote parts of the state. And a lot of the times these small communities have lost, mining industries or forestry. And some of them are so small that there's only 20 residents that live in that town. So there's usually like a tiny gas pump station, and maybe there's a convenience store. But all of a sudden they see an influx of adventure riders, thousands of them coming through the little town, spending money on lodging, gas, and restaurants. And so in 2023, we did an economic study that found that every year riders spend over $60 million. And at that time we had, I believe, 16 routes. And so every year, and now, of course, we have more, so the impact is more, but $60 million every year and more is spent by BDR riders to support these local economies. Some quick stats about the BDR. We're headquartered in Seattle, Washington. That's where we were founded. Our founding sponsor was TourTech USA, which is the same co-founder that ShareDV shares with BDR. So our office is still in Seattle. We're 15 years strong. It is our 15-year anniversary. We have currently 14 BDR routes and 6 BDRX routes, so over 20,000 miles of free adventure tracks for the BDR community. We've got 8 board members, 4 paid employees, a few contractors, and then over 40 ambassadors who are helping carry out the BDR mission, dozens of volunteers, and then over 100,000 people in our community.
What
Kyrie,
is
I'll
a
turn it to you.
BDR? Yeah. So BDRs, we have 20 routes at this point. There's 14 of them that generally go from a southern end of a state to a northern end or multi-state. And then we currently have 6 BDRXs, which are a great first step if you have not already done a BDR, because they loop. They have a starting place and they loop, and they tend to be a shorter route of a long weekend. And so that makes it a good starting place. The states, generally a trip is like 5 to 10 days, depending on how fast you want to move and what sites you want to see along the way. They range mileage wise between 700 and like 1,300 miles. So you really could make it a 2-week epic adventure if you choose. They're all on public roads. So sometimes they're wide gravel roads that are well maintained, and other times it's technical unmaintained roads. Just each route has their own adventure. So right now in 2026, we're increasing our production, if you will, of routes by having 1 main route, and then 3 BDRXs are going to be released every year going forward, which is really exciting. If you haven't been to the website, it's just a wealth of information as you plan and pick which route you want to choose. If you basically, once you choose your route, you can learn everything you need to know about preparing for the route, including down to where recommended places to camp, to get fuel, where you could stay if you want to do hotels, distances that you need to plan between gas stops. So we recommend that you get a printed map along with downloading the GPS tracks, because often, you may need to cross-reference things. In addition, you never know if your technology is going to fail you out in the middle of nowhere. Each route has a film on the website, so you can get a feel for what the route has to offer you. Yeah, and the Facebook group, yep, that's an important one. So once you choose a route that you're going to head out on, I suggest you join the Facebook group, because on there people post, they just rode it, this section was closed, or it rained, there was a washout here. It's very up-to-date information with details about the route. So that's very helpful.
So what do you need to do to plan your BDR route? So number one, of course, you visit the website, right, BDR.com, and you can peruse 20 routes that we have available between the main BDRs and the BDRXs. Again, as Kyrie mentioned, the main BDR routes, they're cross-state. They usually take much longer to complete, and logistically a little bit more challenging, because if you're riding, say, a smaller bike, you have to get yourself from your house to the start of the bike, to the start of the route. Perhaps you may decide you want to trailer your bike there, so you'll have to leave your trailer at the start of the route or somewhere in the middle and ride to the start. And then when you're at the end of the route, you have to figure out how to get back to your trailer, or maybe you're riding back on your bike. So it takes a little bit more planning, where the BDRXs, which of course we're expanding and there's a lot more maybe in your area, those are only 2 to 4 day loop rides. So, logistically, it might be a little bit easier for you to get there and then complete it just in the weekend. So you don't have to take 7 days from your schedule to complete a BDR. So figure out what route works for you. In general, BDRXs are a little bit easier. So if you're just starting out on the BDRs, it might be a route that you want to choose. But basically, you'll be looking at proximity of the route to where you are, and logistically how easy for you to get to it. What time of year you're planning on riding? Some of the routes, like in the western states and more mountainous states, open in July, right? Some of them, like the desert routes, are open almost all year round. And so time of year will dictate what route you want to ride. And then also difficulty. Some of them are more difficult than others. As a new BDR rider, you might want to start with an easier route. So figure out what route is right for you to start with. And then each route has a route page on the website. So you would go there and download the free GPS tracks, and then buy the map that we print in partnership with Butler. The map is not detailed enough to navigate the route, but it has a lot more information, like elevation profile and descriptions of all the sections. And it's just good to have that with you when you're on the route, so you have a big picture view of the route. We also have a handy digital map on the website that one of our ambassadors, Jill Oliver, has been managing for the last 10 years. It's an ArcGIS map. However, in the next month here, we are going to be switching to a different kind of map, which will be even more detailed and more user-friendly. So we'll be announcing that soon, but it's really cool to zoom in and see the typography and the roads where you're going. There's also really handy layers, like you can turn on a layer for snowpack. Like if you're planning to ride a route and you're not sure if how much snow is there, whether the passes are passable, you can turn on that layer and see the snowpack. Also, there's a fire layer. We're adding another layer for campgrounds, which will be very handy. So some upgrades to our digital maps are coming up, but some of the stuff you can already do on the current maps. There's also FAQs, basically all kinds of information or questions you might have about the route you will probably find in the FAQ. There's a handy packing list. If it's your first long distance trip, you can download the packing list and make sure you're prepared with everything you need on your bike. We also provide discovery points. So these are points of interest that might be outside or a little bit further from the route, but if you have time, we would recommend you visit those. And then, of course, there's the feature-length documentary film that is available for free on YouTube. I would definitely recommend watching that just so you can see what the terrain is like and determine the level of interest or difficulty of the route. You want to join the Facebook group page. Again, as Kyrie mentioned, each route has its own Facebook group page. You do have to be admitted to it and prove that you're a motorcyclist and not an overlander, and answer a few questions. But in general, it's a great opportunity to get the most up-to-date information on the route and any road closures, or see pictures of people who have ridden the route recently, or ask questions. Our ambassadors are monitoring and administering those Facebook pages, and they're really the wealth of information for everyone who's riding BDRs. And then we recommend that you find a riding buddy. It's really, BDR should not be done alone. So find a group of friends and then put the date on the calendar. And that really should determine, when you should be riding your trip. Put the date on the calendar and then start planning. So route difficulty, we get that question a lot. We don't generally rate the routes, like they do ski slopes, for example, because it depends on, weather conditions, road conditions, what bike you're riding, like how much gear you're carrying, your skill level. So it's really hard to compare like one person's ability or feeling of difficulty of the route to the other. But in general, this is sort of the general description of the difficulty of the route. Starting with the hardest one is the Southern California BDR. It's quite sandy and rocky. Oregon, similar to that, but Oregon gets easier the further north you get. The first couple sections are pretty tough in the desert. And Arizona BDR is also sandy and rocky. And then we get into Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. Those are, high mountain passes in Colorado. Some of those roads are chewed up, but Colorado is one of the most beautiful routes that you can ride. So I wouldn't let that discourage you. Nevada, Northeast BDR is actually not that difficult, except for the class 4 roads that are now harder alternates. So all of our routes have a main route, and then there's also alternate harder sections that for those of us who want to test their riding abilities, you can choose to do that. And then Washington, New Mexico, and so forth. And then Mid-Atlantic, the Southeast is the one that we have just recently released, is a pretty mild route. And then the easiest of them all is the Mid-Atlantic. So if you live on the East Coast, I would recommend starting with the Mid-Atlantic route. It's about, at this point, probably 40% off-road and 40% paved and 60% off-road. Unfortunately, since the time that we scouted the route or even filmed it, some of the roads that were dirt before have been paved. So Mid-Atlantic is an easy and nice route to start on. And then BDRX's Big Bend in Texas is the hardest one. Red Desert, Wyoming next. Steens and Alvord in Oregon. Chattahoochee BDRX is an accessible route. Black Hills in South Dakota, beautiful and also quite easy. And then PA Wilds in Pennsylvania that actually shares some parts of it with Mid-Atlantic. So that's our easiest one.
Ladies, I feel like there's a lot of conversation going in the chat about difficulty levels and which one's harder and what's this and what does the X mean and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to jump in really quick and remind people that conditions change from day to day. Like it's if somebody's like, hey, it's an easy route. Well, even the Mid-Atlantic BDR, which hits is the easiest, on a rainy, slimy, snotty day, in on the East Coast, you've got slick corners and fast pavement in sections, and that can be just as dangerous. So really check the conditions. I can't encourage people enough to be a part of those Facebook groups. It's so awesome. Of course, I'm biased towards the documentary films myself. But there's so many people out riding these routes, and there's a wealth of information on Facebook or even here at SheADV. We're always out riding. We're all getting on stuff, and our community is all over the country. So it's highly likely that if you're eyeing a section of a BDR, there's somebody here on SheADV who's ridden that recently or has some updated information on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even and if there are questions pertaining maybe to the slide that we're talking about, perhaps we can answer those in real time or however you want to do it.
Well, it's so cool. The chat is answering itself. Everybody in the chat now knows that the X does not mean like deathly hard, difficult. It means that it's a BDR X and it's a looping route. I think it was explained either here or in the chat that there are expert sections on the BDRs and workarounds if you don't want to get on those. And also, it's been really cool to see people jumping in about writing sections of BDRs as a conversation too, because like you don't need a week. I mean, you can jump on a BDRX or you can jump on a section of BDR and just have a fabulous day ride or weekend ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. One of the chat's comments was asking to go back to the slide with the bike size. If we could do that.
It's this one. That's coming up. That's right now. Should I go ahead? Or which one? Is this the one?
I think it was this one. And take a screenshot if you really want that information. You could screenshot it.
Yeah, so the one thing I want to say, because we get asked a lot, especially by women, like what is the right bike choice for the BDR? And really, like my answer to that is whatever bike you have is the perfect bike for the BDR. Granted, you have practiced riding it on easy terrain and on slightly harder terrain. You practiced riding it fully loaded. You've trained on it. You feel really comfortable on it, and then like that's your perfect bike. Three kind of classifications of bikes, single cylinder bikes plated even 250cc. My first route was the Arizona BDR, and I did it on the Yamaha 250R. Knobby tires, like it was the perfect bike. I was able to carry all my gear. As long as you can carry your gear and everything you need on your bike, like it's fine. You can move slow on pavement. Most of the routes are not pavement heavy, so a 250cc is just fine if that's what you want to choose. Husqvarna 501 and 701. I'm on 701 currently, and I feel like it's the perfect bike for me. It carries the gear well, and it's also good on pavement. KLR 650. A lot of guys and maybe girls start on the KLRs. They're super accessible, at price point, and they're easy to fix. That was my first bike that I did my trip to South America on, and had no problems with it. And it chugged along, and it's just fine for a first bike or second bike. KTM 690, Kyrie, that's what you ride, all right? Yeah. And Eva too. That's a great one for ladies. It's light and nimble enough, can still carry the gear. Then we moved on to the mid-size bike, Tenere 700. I've seen some ladies on that. It's a slightly, taller bike, but doable. Transalp, Honda Transalp. I know Lara, our volunteer, has that one. BMW 800, Touareg 660. That's what Jocelyn has switched to now, is the Touareg 660. KTM 1090 and Husqvarna Norden 901, slightly bigger bikes in the mid-sized range, but still doable. And then, of course, there's the power and luxury, the big GSs or KTM 1290 or Africa Twin. Some people say they're even easier, like they're obviously awesome on pavement and you can get to your destination without having to trailer your bike. They're really planted and they have all the creature comforts that you possibly might need. And that's a good choice for some people too. So really, again, it's like when you're choosing your bike for the BDR, consider your budget. If it's your first bike, maybe just go with a KLR. You can drop it many times, not worry about it. Your physical reality, some bikes are taller than others. we don't recommend that you lower your bike so much that it changes how it functions, um, and doesn't have enough clearing. So perhaps figure out what's like a lower, a bike that fits your height. Mechanical abilities. Some bikes are easy to work on. Some are a lot more finicky, and you have to constantly change oil and take them, to the shop unless you work on them yourself. So that's something to consider. Type of terrain that you're going to be riding. Like I said, Mid-Atlantic BDR is a lot more tame. There's, more just gravel, easier gravel roads versus something like an Arizona BDR. And there's a lot of rocks and sand. And so a smaller bike might be better for that kind of route. And then the carrying capacity, obviously on the smaller bikes, you would want to have soft luggage, and you'll be kind of overweight with on the smaller bike. But again, maybe you don't pack as much, and you go travel light, and that's what works for you. So it's a personal choice, but I say the bike you have right now is the perfect bike to ride a BDR. Kyrie, you wanna cover bike setup?
Yes. So really, regardless of what bike you have, there's a few essential things that are very helpful when riding off highway, off pavement. A skid plate certainly helps protect your bike. Crash bars, when you fall over, you're protecting your gas tank or other important parts. Hand guards, some people, like the wraparound, protect your own body. Windscreen is obviously helpful for going on pavement. Auxiliary lights. The heated grips are one of my favorite things to add because almost no matter what time of year, I end up using them at some point on the trip, whether first thing in the morning after camping, it's cold, or it's poured rain, and then just from the moving, your hands are freezing. So luggage, yeah, there's so many choices, but often people are moving towards soft luggage that really hugs the bike and doesn't move around very much versus hard luggage, or hard bags. Toolkit. So for me, whatever bike it is that I'm riding, I always look at, well, basically I start by looking at every single screw, bolt, and I have my tools out to confirm I have everything I need to adjust anything that might come loose or bolt goes missing. So I always want to carry tools that can address everything. You tip over, your hand guards are out of whack. You need to loosen them, retighten them. So you need to have the tools appropriate for that. Same with changing tires. I definitely recommend everybody have experience with changing your tire. Flats happen often. And so, yeah, it just feels like a necessary skill. And in terms of like pre-planning for a trip, I always put on fresh tires, change the oil, change the air filter, just have the bike really well fresh for the adventure. So yes, ergonomics. Key to being able to ride multiple days in a row are to make sure that you're not getting yourself tired by not having your bike properly set up. So I adjust all my levers, based on standing, because I'm standing almost always. And similar with, whether you want bar risers, or how you want your handlebars set up. Often people put on bigger foot pegs, and seat adjustment. I've never had a bike where I get to adjust my seat, but but there are different, more comfortable seats that you can order, aftermarket things. And steering stabilizer. So that helps with, sort of fast speed absorbing rocks and pinging off things. So yeah, lowering the bike, that's often a big question for all of us, being women, generally shorter. Ideally, you shorten a bike as little as possible, just because it changes how the bike handles once you've made adjustments to your suspension. Just even in terms of how tight you can turning radius, there's just all sorts of things that happen that affect the way the bike handles when we lower them. That doesn't mean if you're 5 feet tall, you're going to have to probably lower the bike. But once you do so, it's important to re-correct your sag. Also, with sag, or setting the sag, putting your luggage on, because your sag is one thing when you're just riding out for a day trip without weight. But once you add your luggage for a trip, it definitely changes your sag and how the bike handles with weight. So that's important to learn how to do. Yes.
Kyrie, talk a little bit about SAG. We just had a question pop up in the chat.
Yes. So you generally need a helper with that. And what you do is, well, do you want an explanation of how to?
Yeah, get it, girl.
Okay.
SAG is referring to suspension sag, ladies, for those of you in the chat who's wondering what's going on. So it's just how much, and I'm not a suspension genius, but it's like that balance of rebound and
Compression.
compression that
Right.
balances out. So give us a nuts and bolts, Kyrie. Why not?
So it's a measurement that you do between your rear axle and the top of your your fender. Often bikes even have a little hash mark on the original plastic showing you where you should measure the sag. But you do so to begin with just yourself, to see what the sag is without any gear, and basically how the bike came stock. And you take that mental or write down the measurement, because then you add your gear and your backpack with water, and you see how much the bike squats down, basically. And you need to make an adjustment to your spring, or your shock, to absorb basically how much weight you're putting on the bike so that the bike can handle appropriately. But then when you're going on a trip, it's obviously even different from just a day ride. And you have to adjust your shock even more so that the weight you're putting on it basically is absorbed through the shock. I don't know if you all have followed somebody who they maybe are going over whoops or just bumps in the road, and their hind end is just, massive amounts of bouncing. More than likely that's that their sag hasn't been stiffened up to accommodate all the new weight that they put on the bike. But it really can throw you around quite a bit if you don't adjust it.
Totally. If anybody in the audience tonight knows a suspension guru, female, preferably, I feel like we could do an entire Trailside on suspension setup. So, but there's some really great suspension shops out there. And if it's something that you're having issues with, seek professional help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely adjusted with a professional. Don't do it yourself, because you can really screw it up. Okay, so let's move to rider training. I say do not attempt to ride a BDR unless you had some off-road training. And obviously at CHEDV, we're here to provide you all the resources and tell you where to get your training, particularly with women trainers. But, you know, I basically train every year. I make it a habit. I make that investment because every year I learn something new, even if I go to the same trainer. And, you know, I just kind of grow in my skill level, and he gives me harder exercises to do and new skills to learn, a new way of riding, and it's never boring. He's always pushing me, or she, and it's just something that you invest in yourself, and it becomes so much more fun to ride a BDR when you're not constantly scared. So that's what we say is, you know, whether you take a one-day training class or maybe it's a weekend course. CADV offers training at rallies, even if it's a 4-hour, one-day, you know, taste of what the training is like. Please just invest in yourself and your riding abilities, and you will have so much fun, and you will ride with more confidence on the BDRs and beyond. I do recommend learning from different trainers, like try different schools and see what sticks, because some trainers teach differently, and some things might resonate with you from one person, and some things from the other, and so you just take, you know, it's your own ride, and so you'll absorb information from all of these trainers, and then you'll make it your own ride. So it's kind of fun to see how everybody teaches differently. And then learn skills for a variety of terrain, you know, whether it's sand or rocky uphills or downhills or twisties, whatever that is. BDRs basically have, in one single BDR, you will experience a variety of terrain. So you need to be prepared for that. But some BDRs have you on specific terrain. So if you're planning on doing some desert rides, make sure you have sand riding skills, rock climbing skills, and so forth. And, you know, some of the basic things to master is body positioning, clutch control, steering, and braking. And then for me, like learning to ride slow, I basically taught myself to ride when we did the South America trip in 2008. And then I started riding BDRs, and I never had formal training. And it really, you know, I really hurt myself a number of times. And then finally I was like, man, I really need to start training for the BDRs. And so, but as a novice rider, sometimes we ride too fast, you know, but it's the person who have the skills who can ride slow. So I do encourage you to learn to ride slow. And then don't be afraid to fall, as long as you have good riding gear and protection. Falling is part of riding. I mean, we fall on the BDRs all the time. You also should learn how to fall safely. So those are all the skills to master. And then to continue on training, practice makes perfect. Again, the more training you take, and then the more you go out and practice those skills, the more fun riding will become. You know, start practicing on easy terrain, maybe take a day out on some gravel roads in your backyard, and then slowly build up to more technical terrain. Sometimes you can, at some of the trainings, like I know at BJ's training in Virginia, she offers you a small bike, a dirt bike to start on. And I think that's a really good way to not be scared of a big bike that falls on you. But learning on dirt bikes is perfect. You know, it handles better, like it's lighter, and it's more accessible, but then all of those skills will transfer to the big bike. So, you know, try riding on a dirt bike and doing some training that way, and then transfer to a bigger bike or your own bike. And then do some practice rides for the BDR. Like maybe it's just a one overnight trip where you loaded it with all your gear, and you go out for overnight, and you camp out in the woods somewhere off your bike. You can see what tools you're missing. Maybe you need to adjust something with your packing. Maybe you need to pack less. So then eventually work up to a multi-day trip and then eventually to a BDR. And I do love the idea of, if you live close to a BDR, perhaps you just do a couple sections of the BDR and slowly work up to doing a whole route. And then that's something that Shal always says, but ride your ride, meaning that you're riding at your own pace. A lot of us may be riding with a group of guys and they love riding fast and reckless. And then we might feel pressure to keep up with them, but we're here to tell you don't do that, because it is just a recipe for disaster. If you have to go slow, just go slow. They will wait for you. But so riding at your own pace and is important. And then if they're trying to hurry you along, just say no. Learn to say no. It's really important. And then of course your riding buddies is your team, and part of the power of the BDR is the connections that you build with the people that you ride. And so they're always there to help you lift your bike or cheer you on. And so also choose your teammates wisely. So that's our advice there. I wonder, there was a group of ladies who were just finishing the Southeast, or they were doing the Southeast BDR. And we met them. We had our fundraiser in the Smoky Mountains. Anybody from that group is here? I know that there's
in the chat.
We're here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, Tammy, that's right. So Tammy, you want to just say a few words, like how did that ride go? Because you had a group of girls, right?
So it was fantastic. And I see Donna and Melissa are here as well. So they might want to chime in, but it was a really, really good route. We had never ridden together as a group before though. And I highly recommend that if you're going to go out with a group, it worked out great for us, but I'm just saying, get to know the ladies that you're riding with and ride together for a smaller trip maybe first, because a 10-day trip or so is a really big trip.
Yeah, we say sometimes that like riding a BDR with the group is like being in a canoe with 10 people. You see like the worst and the best in people. And yeah, like sometimes you just don't jam. And I mean, we've had a number of instances when we were filming when people left because they just couldn't handle the pressure, or they were too much in their own head, and taking things personally. So, in addition to just it being a riding experience, it also like a journey into learning about yourself, and kind of putting yourself, not putting yourself first, but putting the team and the experience that you're having first. So, and, sometimes you get into really hard situations and you're like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? But then you as a team you figure it out. And even though in that moment, it's like the worst thing ever, but then when you get through it with teamwork and perseverance, when you come home and you look back at that moment and you're like, man, that was you laugh about it. And that's the story that you tell everybody, of the hard moment. But so, yeah, I mean, there's just so many emotions and experiences that you go through and it's hard to ride physically for 10 days, day in and day out. So it's just also physical exhaustion and emotions and personality clashes. So it's a fun experience. It's like a life journey in 10 days, So I do encourage you all to try it. And I think this is our last slide, but so this is about dialing in your gear. We say basically buy the best protective gear you can afford. It really, I can't stress that enough. And adventure gear is really expensive, but man, it's an investment in your safety. I think in level 2 protection is what we recommend. Not every brand offers it, especially in women's gear. I would say Revit is a really good one. They have good fit. It's really comfortable. And all of their women's gear comes with level 2 protection. Climb has a women's line. They used to have level 2 in all women's gear. I don't think they do now, but you can always, it's level 1 now, I think. but you can buy, all the pads in level 2 and just swap them. Alpine Stars also has women's gear. And then Fox Racing now has adventure gear. I don't think they have a women's line. So those three, Revit, Alpine Stars, and Climb, and Moscow Moto too. Kyrie, do you know are they level 2, Moscow?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, protection is super important. So you want to have your riding suit, the jacket and the pant, obviously good helmet, gloves. I usually pack at least 2 pairs of gloves on my trip. Off-road boots, man, I can't stress enough as well how important it is to get the beefiest off-road boots you can afford, like CD Crossfires or the Alpine Stars Tech 3 boots is what we would recommend. They have a lot of protection, and they're actually not that uncomfortable to walk in. They're definitely comfortable to ride in. Sometimes, like if you want to go to points of interest, you have to walk a little, but I've had my bike fall on my leg so many times. I've never broken an ankle or anything thanks to the boots that I wear. Definitely mid layers, comfortable, like soft, breathable, moisture working mid layers, rain gears if your suit is not it's not waterproof, and then some other things like communication systems. If you ride in a group, it's really great to have to be all on the comm system, on a mesh. Cardo and Senna, the big ones, we of course would recommend Cardo because Lauren is our volunteer who works at Cardo, and as a SheADV supporter, you can get 20% off on Cardo units. So highly recommended. I think they're domineering the market now. And then of course, make sure you have your emergency beacons, whether it's Spot or you have a satellite phone. Satellite phones are great, and we actually rent them just for the expedition because they're pretty expensive to own one and to pay for like annual service, but you can rent one pretty cheaply, and then then you're really safe and you can call in anytime in emergency. And then like these days also, iPhone I know has a SOS on the phone sometimes, depending on like if it can get signal. But so yeah, make sure you don't leave your home without an emergency beacon. So that concludes our presentation for BDR. So we can open it for questions.
I love it. Ladies, if you're interested in winning the Silver Supporter Program for BDR, make sure you've dropped Ride BDR into the chat. If there's any questions, the chat tonight is kind of on fire. I feel like this is a lot of ladies plotting and scheming to get on some rides. It's like people are talking about gear, people are talking about routes. There was some mentions of how to find friends to ride with. And of course, we recommend the SheADV supporter page for that. We've got a map that's building out of where all of the SheADV ladies are all over the country. I mean, we might as well plug it since we are, but that little map, I think it's got a few more dots on it now because I don't know how many ladies we have in the supporter program at this point, but it is so cool. It's only $45. And is that right? It's $45 for the year. It gets you discounts on all kinds of cool stuff, cool gear. There's a bunch of stuff on there. Gets you discounts on training, gets you discounts on our virtual coaching series that we just launched a week or two ago, which is super exciting, but really great opportunity on there to one, support SheADV, and then be a little bit more connected with the community and get a little bit better kitted out so that you're super safe when you're riding. Okay, hold on. There's questions. Is there any questions that I'm missing? I'm telling you, it is like fire in the chat tonight. Are the blue and yellow SheADV shirts still available? EJ, 20% off Cardo. That's for SheADV supporters. The code can be found on that page once you get into the supporter program. So it's on the discounts page. Shal says, you want more buckles on your boots? I can't say enough good things about big sturdy boots. I'm really not seeing a lot of questions, but maybe you two should talk about, if you haven't already, what's in the future for BDR, the near future.
Yeah, so we have a slide here for Southeast. We've been doing the dealership film tour with screenings. We had over 80 screenings around the country. Maybe some of you have gone to a dealership and watched the film, but on June 4th, we're going to be doing a live YouTube broadcast. And that's when we're dropping the last part of the film, because when the expedition originally happened, they couldn't film the last leg, 300 miles up to Damascus, from Maggie Valley to Damascus, was not rideable because of Hurricane Helene destruction. However, that portion is now open, and so the team went back and filmed the last portion of the route. So now we're going to have the full film that we will premiere online on YouTube on June 4th. So if you're available, please join us for that. We'll have some commentary from the expedition team and the route architects, and then the film will be available online for free on YouTube. And then just in general, what's coming up in the pipeline, as Kyrie mentioned, the BDR has committed to doubling the number of routes in the next 5 years. So now we have 20 in 5 years. With the support of our community and industry, we're hoping to have 40 routes. So next year, we are releasing the Montana BDR, which Kyrie and I will be a part of. And that's a big one for us because we're finally completing the West Coast, the Western BDR. So like if you look in the map, we just need to connect that final line there. And then in terms of BDRXs, there's a number of, I think like we have over 30 routes currently in development. And what we're trying to do every year, we're going to be trying to fill in the middle of the country. And then with BDRXs, finding areas in existing states where we already have BDRs, and in the states where that maybe don't lend themselves to a full BDR because there's not enough riding opportunities across the state, but that maybe have pockets of cool, ADV terrain. So we will be releasing those BDRXs. So in October this year, we'll be releasing the Texas Hill Country, which is will be quite an easy route. It'll be 50-50 pavement to off-road. And then we have the Lost Coast in Northern California that Jocelyn Snow is working on. That will be BDRX coming out next June. There's also Adirondacks in New York. That's an amazing riding area close to a population. And so actually Erin from our board will be participating in that route. And then there's, like I said, a list of 30 routes that the development team is currently working on. So lots of cool stuff in the works.
Summer's heating up. It's time to hit those trails. Ladies, set yourself up with some gear, start scouring the Ride BDR website, and just start dreaming big. And just remember, you can do a section. You can find a friend. You can do a BDRX. Just get out there. You can do a section of a section. No pressure. You can ride the first 100 yards, turn around and ride back. It doesn't matter. Just get out there and do the thing. And it's just so fun. It's so fun. I'm so excited to see all of you out on the trails and at the events and rallies. Touratech West. If you haven't got your tickets, that thing always sells out. It's big. It's giant. We're doing so much cool stuff with She ADV there and all kinds of cool stuff all throughout the summer. So without further ado, we can just wrap it up for the night. Say thank you so much to Ina and Kyrie, and thank you all so much, She ADV community, for all your support. And you're going to look so good in those new jerseys. The new material is bomb. Shal has seen it in person, and it just has a great feel. So yeah, rock stars, all of you, every one of you. Love it. Have a great night,
Thank
ladies.
you.
So
Thanks,
much.
ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye.